was this girl. Her name was Laura. She had a room of her own. I did not. I shared a double right next to Laura's single in the international dorm at the University of Oregon. As an English major and German minor, I lived on a floor with students in journalism, foreign languages, world lit, art, and film. My roommate, Sue Hing, was from Hong Kong. When the dorm didn't serve dinners on Sunday nights, she made fish head soup on her hot plate every Sunday night. Down the hall, she had two sisters who shared a double, where she often studied and some nights slept at the foot of one of their beds. There were 10 rooms on each side of the long waxed hallway, each door solid oak with a brass doorknob polished over the years by the hands of young women. After dinner, my friends and I propped open the doors, and we hung out. Dorm rooms felt like oversized shoeboxes. And as a freshman, it wasn't always easy to express all of your 18-year-oldness on only your half of the room. The rooms might have been the same identical halves. The personalities in them were anything but. Take my friend Molly and Terry. Molly was a journalism major but was taking sciences to switch over to nursing. She could smoke pot all night long but still make it to her lectures and ace her labs. Terry said she was taking art classes but seemed to be majoring in weekend boyfriend and stray dogs that liked my bed. So my friends and I played albums in Susan and Karen's double room because Sue's mom sent the weekly care package, homemade cookies. We listened to Jethro Tull's Aqualung, Joni Mitchell's Ladies of the Canyon. We'd sit cross-legged on the floor, poring over the album lyrics on the back, the cover photos on the front. One night, as we scarfed chocolate chip cookies, we heard a door slam and saw Laura from the single room flash by, boots clicking under her plaid miniskirt. My eye caught the skirt. I wanted one. She wore black cashmere. I thought about my turquoise mohair sweater, how I'd pull it out, wear it the next day. One of my friends gestured, brushing up her nose, that she thought Laura was stuck up, saying like some Breck girl from the 50s. We were budding feminists in bell-bottom jeans, long hair, rebelling against the establishment that wanted us to spend money on makeup, expensive clothes, and hairdos. We wore denim shirts on which we'd embroidered flowers. Someone said, maybe she's rich. Yeah, her mom probably sends her macaroons and English breakfast tea from Harrods. One of them asked me, have you met her yet? Well, kind of, on the elevator. She had her hands full and asked me if her mascara was smudged. I guess she must have recognized me or thought I was worth using as a mirror. She was on her way to a presentation for broadcast journalism school. Molly, future nurse, pulled a doobie out of her pocket and lit it by the window. She's going to be a sellout, another anchor woman with a pretty face, covering fluff pieces. You can tell. The others got up to join her. I stood up too, but they knew I wouldn't be in on the nightly ritual. Except for Molly, the rest of them were art majors. I'm not sure when they studied. I had 17th century poetry waiting for me. As I walked back to my room, I thought about Laura in the elevator. That day, her green eyes, shoulder-length sandy hair, falling effortlessly, framing her face. Maybe I envied her style and independence in that room of her own. Maybe I fantasized that she, the broadcast journalism major in cashmere and boots, and me, the future high school English teacher in my corduroy jacket and sensible leather shoes, could be friends. I also envied her single room. It meant privacy, space. I always felt like I had to stay on my side with Sue Hing. I typed my essays, my Sears portable stereo, and hot water pot on my side of the windowsill. Laura was lucky to have that room of her own, a phrase I'd been reading about in a lecture by Virginia Woolf. I imagined Laura could spread out her books, read into the night with a light on her bed. She could write out her private thoughts in her journal, drink her special delivery English breakfast tea. That was quiet and ownership of space that I'd never experienced. Growing up with 5 siblings, I shared a bedroom with my younger sister and grandma. I changed my underclothes in the bathroom. Bodies were off limits. My high school friends and I complained about our periods and how radical it seemed back then, switching from Kotex pads to tampons. Would you still be considered a virgin? If any of my girlfriends were masturbating, they sure as hell weren't talking about it. And what kind of word was masturbate, anyway? I'd heard my brothers and their friends use words like jack off. There were those strange phrases like wet dreams and nocturnal emissions, which sounded like auto mechanics. But for girls, there were no words to describe self-touching other than that ugly word, masturbate. No words because maybe girls weren't supposed to be doing it. I tried sex, at least parts of it. In high school, I could kiss long enough to get turned on and shove that Catholic guilt into the Saturday confessional. At the end of high school, I had my first serious boyfriend. We'd go on dates to movies, rock concerts, go hiking. We had long talks in the car, the porch light glowing near the driveway. We'd kiss and touch. For me, it felt right, a safe turn-on, because I know that as far as it could go in a VW Bug's front seat with a stick shift between us, that was it. We were engaged in angsty adolescent attempts, and I was leaving in fall for a university 600 miles away. I made the promise to be true, yet I was eager, ready to experience life. Even with that wall separating Laura and my room, I knew a thing or two about Laura beyond her sweaters and hair. Beyond that wall was that thin wall. I could hear her sigh, swing open her closet door, crank open her window to smoke a cigarette. We both had single beds fixed to the wall with the dorm-issued plastic waterproof mattress protector. When one of us flopped down on the bed, it would bump the wall. Around 10, the hallway would come to life as girls made curfew. I'd be lying on my crummy mattress, propped on my elbow, reading and taking notes for some play, like Aristophanes' Lysistrata. And then Laura would bounce in, towing her latest admirer to that room of her own, still in conversation that must have started somewhere. The library? She'd slam the door shut. Keys would clatter on the desk. A chair would scrape. A guy's voice. She'd tell him to quit worrying. And then I'd hear low sounds from both of them. Then the flop on the bed, the plastic mattress scraping along the wall. Laura's voice saying, "No one checks up." The dude's boots clunked to the floor. A belt clink. Then groaning. And Laura again, "No one can hear us." But I'd heard inches from the wall. It was like I was in the same room. I felt uncomfortable, but couldn't leave the floor after curfew. I couldn't play my stereo after hours. I tried to stuff a pillow over my head and keep reading or even sleeping. I'd lie there, awake as hell. One night I was burning incense, drinking instant coffee, and propped up on my pillow, taking notes for a midterm on Faulkner's As I Lay Dying, when a lock clicked and door slammed, followed by Laura laughing and talking breathlessly. I heard the snap of a lighter, then a window crank open. The scent of pot snaked its way in through my partly opened window. I stared back at the desk. There was my Janis Joplin poster, the one where her nipples showed through the blouse. Something crashed to the floor, snickering. Then the plop on the bed and the proverbial scrape along our wall. Rustling clothes. I could hear kissing. Even Laura telling the guy that his kissing turned her on. Feelings rushed through me. I felt guilty for listening. She was so brave, telling the guy what she liked. Why hadn't I ever done that? Maybe this worked, kept the kissing going. I liked kissing. I was frustrated being alone, making some old-fashioned promise to my boyfriend 600 miles away. In my homework notes, I wrote, "Tell the guy his kissing turns me on." What was I doing? I waited, though, for what would come next. I heard her tell him to wet his fingers and rub her nipples. I wrote that down. I wondered what she was doing to him. Laura let the guy know what she needed, and it sounded like he must have done it because I could hear her groaning. She got louder, and I could feel myself blushing and getting warmer. She said more licks, like a puppy. Like a puppy? I didn't know what to do with that, but I wrote it down. I heard shuffling in bed. Was she moving him where she wanted him? I stopped taking notes and lay on my back. I wet my fingers and rubbed my nipple. I hadn't ever really concentrated on rubbing my own nipples before, but if I was ever trying to give myself an orgasm, I'd rub where my boyfriend pressed against me. I don't think I'd ever had an orgasm. Maybe some butterflies, but nothing to groan about. And how would I know when the word they used back then to describe it was climax? Climax was part of the story we studied in high school English class. What if my roommate Sue came back? See, that was my problem, always worrying about getting caught. I kept listening. Laura gave some short, quick directions. She wanted to help him get it right. No, up, higher, harder. I turned over and added notes. I found myself agreeing with her. That's right, I thought. It seemed just fine with him to be directed. She said, "Oh, baby," or just moaned if he got it right. I wondered if she knew I was on the other side listening like some sicko. But it was impossible not to hear it to the finish. She let out an edgy little sigh, even a laugh. Not a word, though, from the guy. Just shuffling and those boots. A door click. The next morning, I left my dorm door open. I sat on the other side of the room at Sue's desk. How could I have heard anything way over there? I heard Laura's door open, and I wanted to get a good look at her. She was dressed up, nylons and a skirt, like she was a good girl going to church. Weird. She dressed as properly as my mother. Strange. Not long after midterms, though, my boyfriend surprised me one weekend by making the 10-hour drive. The first night, I hid him in my dorm room. I put my quilt over the plastic mattress liner and under the thin sheet. I even inserted my health center-issued diaphragm. Over the weeks since I'd first taken notes, I put some of Laura's moves into my own self-practice. Even added a few of my own moves. I hated that M word, but I didn't hate how it was starting to feel when I learned what made me feel good. It felt strange, but also strangely empowering. At some point, while my boyfriend and I were wrapped around each other, he paused and gave me a worried look. "Have you been seeing someone?"
That was Nancy Cary.